They came from the dark edge of the galaxy. No warning, no message, just silence, then fire. The Axir, a race known only in whispers, had returned. For centuries, they had moved from star to star, wiping out any species they met. They didn't talk. They didn't ask questions. They only killed. Their ships were shaped like knives, black and sharp, moving through space without sound. Their soldiers were tall, wrapped in silver armor that pulsed with a strange green light. Their eyes were dead, empty, like they had forgotten what mercy was. The galaxy was afraid of them. Some species tried to fight. Some tried to hide. It didn't matter. The Axir always found them, and they always won. Now, they had set their eyes on a new world. New Terra, a human colony on the edge of known space. It was quiet, peaceful, and still young. The people there had no war machines, no great armies, just farms, homes, and dreams of a better life. The Axir arrived at night. A young boy named Aaron was the first to see their ships. He was looking at the stars through his small telescope when a shadow blocked the moon. He blinked, then screamed. Sirens rang out across New Terra, but it was too late. The Axir were already here. They began their attack like they always did. First came the black clouds, fear gas, made from chemicals that turned strong warriors into shaking cowards. Then came the drones, scanning and marking targets. Then came the soldiers, moving fast and without sound, cutting down anything in their way. But something strange happened. The people of New Terra didn't run. They didn't scream. They fought back. Men and women grabbed old rifles, mining lasers, even farming tools. They worked together. They defended each other. And slowly, something unbelievable happened. The Axir started to lose soldiers. The Axir commander, a creature named Vorkal, stood above the battlefield and watched with confusion. His kind had never seen this before. Other species fell to the fear gas in seconds. But the humans, they kept fighting. Their eyes were filled with fear, but also fire, rage, will. Vorkal ordered more gas to be released. It didn't help. He ordered more troops. They were pushed back. This wasn't supposed to happen. Inside a burning building, a group of human defenders held their position. One of them, a woman named Lieutenant Sarah Mendez, yelled to her squad, "We hold the line. They don't get past this point." She had lost her husband in the first wave. She was tired, bleeding, but she refused to fall. And around her, others found strength. They fought harder, like the pain gave them power. In space, a small human patrol ship named Hawk 3 charged into the enemy fleet. It was outnumbered 10-1. But it didn't turn away. It flew straight through the Axir line, dropping flares and shooting from every angle. One Axir warship exploded, then another. The commander clenched his fists. "This isn't possible," he growled. "They're just humans." His second-in-command replied, "But they're not like the others. They resist." Vorkal looked down again. Fires burned. His soldiers were dying. He felt something strange rise in his chest. Not anger, not hate, something colder. Doubt. Back on the ground, young Aaron and his sister were hiding under a broken bridge. An injured soldier pulled them to safety, carrying them through gunfire. He had already taken 2 shots to the leg. But he smiled at them and said, "Don't worry, you're safe now." That's when Vorkal understood. These humans, they didn't fight for land or power. They fought for each other, for family, for hope. And that made them dangerous. The Axir had always believed fear was the strongest weapon. But now they saw something stronger. Love, will, the fire that burns in the human heart even when all seems lost. As the battle dragged into night, the Axir pulled back, not because they wanted to, but because they had to. Their losses were growing, and for the first time in centuries, they had failed to take a world. The sky was full of smoke, but the stars still shined above. Sarah Mendez stood near the ruined city center. She looked up, breathing heavy. Her clothes were torn. Her arms were covered in ash. But she was still standing. "They'll come back," someone said. She nodded. "Let them. We'll be ready." Far above, on his ship, Commander Vorkal stared at the battlefield one last time. Then he turned to his officers. "Begin the research," he said. "Find out what makes them immune. We need answers." Another Axur officer asked in a low voice, "Do you believe they are a threat?" Vorkal didn't reply for a long time. Then he spoke, almost whispering. "They are more than a threat. They are a problem we were never meant to face." As his ship disappeared into the stars, one message echoed through the dark. "What are these humans?" And the galaxy was about to find out. No one ever stopped them. No one ever slowed them down. Entire planets burned. Cities vanished. And when it was over, nothing remained but cold ash and silence. The Axur had lost something they had never lost before. A battle. Not a war, not a campaign, but a single fight. That alone shook them. But what shook them more was who had defeated them. Humans. They were supposed to be weak. A young species. Loud, emotional, chaotic. The Axur didn't fear them. No one did. But now, for the first time in centuries, the Axur were asking a question they had never needed before. Why didn't the humans break? Commander Vorkal sat in silence inside his warship. The lights around him dimmed, screens blinking with reports of failure. Hundreds of soldiers lost. A gas drop that didn't work. Human resistance beyond anything they'd faced before. He replayed the footage. Humans coughing, shaking, but still fighting. Still charging. Still winning. The fear gas had worked perfectly on over 50 alien species. It was the Axur's greatest weapon. A single breath caused terror so deep that most enemies dropped their weapons and begged to die. Some fainted. Others turned on their own people just to escape the madness. But the humans didn't. They felt the fear, yes, but they moved through it. They acted because of it. "This makes no sense," Vorkal growled. "Fear is universal, not for humans." Back on New Terra, a small medical team moved through the ruins of the city, treating the wounded. One of them, Dr. Elena Rios, had studied alien biology for years. Now she studied human survivors instead, trying to understand why they had survived the gas. She looked at scans of the brain. The part that responds to fear. In humans, it lit up, yes, but it didn't shut them down. It woke them up. "These people don't freeze," she said quietly. "They ignite." She showed the data to the colony's military officer, Captain Rowe. "You're telling me fear makes them stronger?" he asked. "In a way, yes," Elena said. "Our people are trained to push through fear. Soldiers, firefighters, even children. It's part of how we grow up. Humans face fear from the moment they're born. Falling, pain, death, loss. It doesn't stop us. It builds us." Captain Rose smiled. No wonder the aliens didn't know what hit them. Far across space, deep inside an Axur research station, scientists gathered to study human prisoners. They didn't hurt them. Not yet. They just watched. A soldier named James Cutter sat inside a glass cell. He had been captured during the first battle. For 3 days, they played fear sounds in his room. Screams, explosions, nightmares pulled from his own memories. He didn't break. On the 4th day, they sent in a psychological manipulator, a machine that reads thoughts and injects fear directly into the brain. It made strong alien warriors cry within minutes. James didn't cry. He laughed. The lead scientist, a pale Axur named Grex, couldn't understand it. "You feel the fear," he said through a speaker. "Why don't you run from it?" James looked up and said simply, "Because running never helped anyone." Grex frowned. "But it hurts." James nodded. "So does living. You think fear makes us weak. You've never been human." He stood, Face full of scars, voice calm. Fear is not the enemy. Giving up is. And we don't do that. Back on New Terra, the people rebuilt fast. Kids cleared rubble. Soldiers repaired equipment. The colony worked like a machine, not because they weren't afraid, but because they were and refused to stop. Commander Vorkal received one final report. It was short. Subject: human resistance. Result: total failure. Notes: fear ineffective. Human minds adapted. Caution advised. He closed the report and looked at the stars beyond his ship. They adapt, he whispered. They learn. They resist. He called his war council. We need new tactics. Bigger ships. Better weapons. One general asked, should we avoid them for now? Vorkal turned slowly. Avoid them. His voice dropped. No, we wipe them out before they grow. But deep inside, he knew the truth. The Axir had just met something they couldn't control, something they didn't understand. A species that felt fear, and still kept moving forward. He stared at the Earth's direction. What are you made of? He whispered. No answer came, just silence. And somewhere, a human child picked up a broken toy, smiled, and began to fix it. Because that's what humans do. They fear, they fall, and then they rise. Even when death is right in front of them. The Axir had a long history of breaking their enemies, not just their bodies, but their minds. They had mind weapons, psychic pressure machines, and truth-bending lies that turned brave soldiers into cowards. They believed no species could resist the mental power of the Axir. Until they met humans. On the Axir research station, orbiting a dead moon, 7 human prisoners sat in separate metal cells. Cold, silent, locked away from the stars. They had been captured after the Battle of New Terra. Most alien prisoners didn't last long in these rooms. Some cried. Some screamed. Many begged for death. But not the humans. They waited. One of them, Sergeant Dax Monroe, had been a soldier for 10 years. He sat still, eyes closed, remembering his family on Earth. The Axir tried every trick. Loud noises, flashing lights, fake voices pretending to be loved ones. None of it worked. The lead interrogator, Grex, studied him closely. This one is too calm, Grex said. No fear spikes. No mental breaks. No surrender signs. Another scientist replied, should we increase the pressure? Grex nodded. Yes, begin the mind dive. Inside the chamber, machines hummed. Metal arms lowered over Dax's head. They began sending sharp images directly into his brain. Fears pulled from deep memory. Explosions. Drowning. Darkness. Losing control. Losing people. His heart rate rose, but he didn't scream. He didn't move. Instead, he muttered, seen worse. The system beeped in confusion. One message flashed on the screen. Subject resisting all input. Grex stepped back. Impossible. Everyone breaks. But this wasn't everyone. This was a human. In another cell, a young woman named Mira watched the wall. She had been a student before the attack, not a soldier. But even she didn't break. When they told her Earth had been destroyed, a lie, she didn't cry. She stared at them and said, you really think I'll believe that without proof? The Axir couldn't understand. Other species broke from small lies. But Mira asked questions. She looked for truth. She stayed strong. Not because she was trained, but because she chose to be. One Axir guard whispered to another, why are they like this? They feel pain. They feel fear. But they don't stop. The answer came slowly. Because humans are used to pain. On Earth, they fight through poverty, storms, war, hunger. They grow up learning to fall and get back up. They lose people. They lose homes. They suffer. But they keep going. Pain is not new to them. It's just part of life. The Axir never understood this. Their own kind avoided pain at all costs. Comfort and control were their strengths. But humans endured. One day, Sergeant Dax was brought to the Axir command chamber. Grex stood before him, annoyed. "We have studied your people," Grex said. "We understand your biology, your history, but still you resist. Why?" Dax looked at him and answered, "Because we don't fight alone. We fight for the person next to us. We fight for people we love." Grex narrowed his eyes. "Love, emotion is weakness." Dax smiled slightly. "No, that's your mistake. Emotion is what makes us stronger." Grex raised a clawed hand and shouted, "We will find your weakness." Dax didn't flinch. "Try." Back on Earth, news of the captured soldiers reached the Human Alliance. Families lit candles. Leaders gave speeches, but one group didn't waste time: the Phantoms. They were a secret unit, silent, trained for deep rescues, and they were already moving toward the Dead Moon. Because humans don't leave their own behind. Grex began to feel pressure. His superiors wanted results, but all he had was silence from the humans. No answers, no fear, only more questions. In one last attempt, he put all 7 humans in a single room. Cameras watched from every angle. He expected them to be confused, disoriented. But the moment they saw each other, the humans smiled. One reached out and grabbed another's hand. They didn't speak. They didn't cry. They just stood together. Grex stared at the screen. "They draw strength from each other," he said slowly. "Even here." Suddenly, alarms rang out across the station. The Phantoms had arrived. Small, fast ships struck the station's weak points. Lights blinked. Doors shut. Explosions echoed down long metal halls. Grex turned to run, but it was too late. The humans had already broken free. Sergeant Dax walked toward him with calm eyes. "You tried to break us," he said. "You only made us stronger." That night, the humans escaped. The station burned, and across the stars, a new truth spread. The Axir could kill many, but they couldn't kill the human mind, because it wasn't built to bend. It was built to rise. The escape was not the end. It was the beginning. The Axir didn't know it yet, but they had crossed a line they could never return from. They had captured humans, tortured them, tried to break them, failed, and now those same humans were coming back, not just to survive, but to fight. The Human Alliance gathered in silence. The survivors from New Terra, the escapees from the Dead Moon, and leaders from Earth's last great nations came together for one reason: to hit back. The mission had a name: Operation Ember. It was not a full war, not yet. It was a message, a warning, a line drawn in fire. Their first target, a small Axir outpost near the gas giant Kilix 9. It was believed to be a listening station, quiet, lightly guarded, not important. But that was wrong. It was a testing lab, the same place where the Axir created new fear weapons. And that made it the perfect target. Captain Sarah Mendez, now leading the Ember team, stood inside a dark dropship with 20 soldiers. Some were veterans. Some were just farmers who had picked up rifles after New Terra burned. All of them had one thing in common: they had lost something to the Axir, and they wanted it back. As the dropship approached the outpost, Sarah checked her gear and looked at her team. "We're not just here to destroy their tech," she said quietly. "We're here to show them we're not afraid. We hit them where they feel safe." No one answered. They didn't have to. They were ready. The drop began. Fast, silent, no warning. The ship cut through the clouds and came down like thunder. It smashed into the station's outer wall, and the humans poured out. Guns up, no hesitation. The Axir were shocked. They were not prepared for a direct attack on their own land. One guard screamed as he saw human eyes glowing through smoke and fire. "How are they here?" But he didn't get to finish the thought. The humans moved like shadows, quick, Clean, focused, explosives were planted. Data was stolen. Labs were burned. Inside the control room, Sarah faced off with the lead Axur technician. He tried to activate the gas release, the same fear gas that failed on Nuterra. Sarah shot the console before he could touch it. "We're not afraid of your tricks anymore," she said, stepping closer. "You should be afraid of us." He snarled, showing razor teeth. "You are animals. Chaos. You cannot win." Sarah's eyes narrowed. "We don't need to win today. We just need you to remember this." She set the final charge and walked away. 10 minutes later, the sky over Calyx 9 burned orange. The station was gone. Across the galaxy, the Axur listened to the report in disbelief. Confirmed. Human strike team destroyed Research Site 12. No survivors. All data lost. Commander Vorkal crushed the report in his hand. "How did they reach us?" "They used stealth," his officer said. "Old tech, simple paths. They think outside logic. They don't follow rules." That's what scared the Axur most. Humans didn't fight like machines. They fought like storms. Each human was different. Some loud, some quiet, some full of fire, others cold and still. But they all carried one thing inside them, something the Axur couldn't kill: purpose. Back on Earth, the mission was celebrated, but not loudly. There was no cheering, just quiet nods. People lit candles, hugged their children, looked to the stars with sharp eyes. They knew this was just the beginning. In space, the Axur gathered their fleets. They doubled security, built new weapons, started deeper experiments on human DNA, desperate to find a weakness. But no matter how much they studied, they couldn't understand it. "What gives them this will?" one scientist asked. "They are not stronger," another said. "They are not faster." "No," said Grex, returning from the ruins of the moon station. "They are willing. And if they are willing to die," he whispered, "then we may not be able to stop them." That night, a signal was broadcast across all human colonies. It was Captain Sarah Mendez's voice. "We know what they are. And now, they know what we are." The message was short, but across the stars, it echoed with meaning. "We are not prey. We are not afraid. We are human." The galaxy shifted, and the war was no longer one-sided. The Axur thought they had seen every kind of weapon. Lasers, drones, blades, gas, fire, machines that tear stars apart. Their empire was built on power and control. Every species they met had a limit, a point where they broke, a line it would not cross. But humans had something else, a weapon the Axur couldn't understand. And it was coming. It started with a strange message. A silent ship floated into Axur space. No life signs, no weapons visible, no engine trail, just a dead Earth ship drifting slowly toward one of their outer posts. The Axur scanned it. It was empty. They pulled it in. Inside, they found nothing but a small black box, bolted to the wall. One technician opened it. A single word blinked on the screen: "Remember." And then the ship exploded. It didn't destroy the station. It didn't even cause much damage. But that wasn't the point. The message spread, not just to one station, to many. A pattern of these silent ships began to appear across Axur space, always the same: empty, cold, carrying nothing but that one strange word: "Remember." Commander Vorkal grew furious. "Remember what?" he shouted. "What are they doing?" But no one had the answer. Because this wasn't war the way the Axur understood it. It wasn't about planets or soldiers. It was about the mind. The humans were doing something new. They were changing the story. One Axur officer, young and sharp, brought a report to the command center. "Sir, these messages are reaching the lower ranks. Some of our own soldiers are starting to ask questions." Vorkal slammed his fist on the table, then erased the questions. But he couldn't erase fear. Not anymore. Because now the Axir were feeling something they never expected. Doubt. Back on Earth, in a deep base beneath the Arctic ice, Captain Sarah Mendez stood beside Dr. Elena Rios. They looked at a room filled with letters, videos, photos, voices, memories. These, Elena said softly, are what scare the Axir. Not bombs, not ships, but human history. Pain, sacrifice, love, loss. Stories passed down from one person to the next. They were building something the Axir couldn't match. A weapon made of human memory. The humans called it Project Echo. Every time the Axir struck a human colony, the survivors sent messages back. Raw, unfiltered, full of pain and truth. Those messages were copied, multiplied, and sent out again, not just to humans, but into Axir space. Every soldier, every station, every system. Messages that said, "We are still here. We remember, and we will not stop." The Axir tried to block them. They couldn't, because humans didn't need high-tech. They used old methods. Radio, lasers, even paper dropped from ships. Stories became weapons, and the Axir had no shield against them. In a quiet Axir base on a mining moon, one alien soldier sat in silence, reading a message that had slipped through their filters. It was a letter from a human mother, written to her son who died in battle. It ended with the words, "You were brave. I will never forget. None of us will." The soldier stared at it for hours, and when the alarm called for another attack on a human world, he hesitated. Because the humans weren't just fighting with guns. They were fighting with meaning. One species out of thousands, and yet their words cut deeper than any weapon. Why? Because humans believed in things the Axir didn't. Hope, honor, memory, love. Commander Vorkal received a final warning from his inner council. The human mind is not like others. The message read, "It fights long after the body is broken. It carries pain across generations. This is not war. This is something older, something deeper." Vorkal didn't want to believe it. He still thought they could win. But the humans were already spreading through the stars, not just with fleets, but with fire in their hearts. A different kind of weapon, one the Axir couldn't build, one they couldn't kill. That night, a single Earth signal reached the Axir homeworld. It was only 2 words. "We remember." And across the galaxy, the stars seemed to burn just a little brighter. The galaxy was watching. By now, even the species that feared the Axir began to whisper about the humans. They shared stories in secret, stories of survivors, stories of escape, stories of something the Axir couldn't crush. Axir commanders ordered silence. They banned all human messages, destroyed human tech, even erased planets from maps. But no matter what they did, one truth kept slipping through the cracks. The humans were not losing. In fact, they were getting stronger. Captain Sarah Mendez stood aboard the Torchbearer, a human ship unlike any before. It wasn't the biggest, it wasn't the fastest, but it carried something new, a symbol. Painted across its side was the face of Earth, surrounded by flames. The message was clear: we rise from fire. Her team had gathered. Soldiers, engineers, farmers, even artists. Not one of them was unscarred. They had all lost something, but none of them had given up. Tonight, they were heading straight for the Axir command satellite known as the Eye. It was the heart of Axir communication. Every signal passed through it. Every order, every lie. If the humans took it down, the Axir would go blind. Sarah looked at her team. "This isn't just about battle," she said. "It's about truth, about showing them who we really are." The ship jumped to light speed. Inside the Eye, Axir Commander Vorkal paced in silence. His advisors warned him of human attacks, but he didn't believe they would strike so deep. Not here, not in the heart of Axir space, until the alarms began. A single human ship came out of light, and it didn't run. It charged. The torchbearer slammed through defense lines, taking hits, returning fire. Its hull burned. Its systems screamed. But it didn't stop. Inside, humans moved with perfect focus. They were outnumbered, outgunned, but not outwilled. They broke into the satellite's core and planted an old Earth device, not a bomb. A broadcaster. It sent out every story the Axir had tried to bury. Videos of burned villages, voices of children, messages from soldiers who died fighting. The truth flooded the Axir network like a virus. In every Axir base, the screens turned to human faces. In every city, people saw Earth's pain and Earth's strength. Commander Vorkal screamed, "Cut the signal." But it was too late. The truth was loose, and it was spreading. In one Axir colony, a soldier tore off his helmet and looked into the sky. They feel pain, but they keep going. How do they do it? Another replied softly, "Maybe they believe in something more." The humans had done it. They hadn't destroyed the eye. They had turned it into a mirror. Now, the whole Axir empire was looking at itself and seeing the lie. Back on the torchbearer, Captain Sarah smiled through blood on her face. "They thought fear would silence us," she whispered. "Instead, they taught us how to speak louder." Her crew cheered, even as systems began to fail. The torchbearer had taken too much damage. They wouldn't survive much longer. But that didn't matter. The mission was done. Sarah sent one final message. "We are still here. You can kill bodies, but not what we stand for. Not what we carry. Not what we remember." And then the screen went dark. The torchbearer fell into the atmosphere of a nearby moon, vanishing in flame. But the story did not die. Across the stars, people repeated her words. Allies began to rise. Small planets, once afraid of the Axir, started resisting. Not with guns, but with courage, with unity, with belief. And even within the Axir ranks, something began to break. Their perfect control. Commander Vorkal stared at the reports. The humans had not destroyed them. But something worse had happened. The Axir were no longer feared. And that was the beginning of their fall. Because the Axir could kill anyone, except the one thing they didn't understand. The human spirit. It didn't run. It didn't kneel. It didn't forget. It fought. And it was just getting started. The Axir were breaking. Not because of firepower, not because of technology, but because something was happening across their empire that they had never seen before. Silence. For the first time, Axir soldiers began ignoring orders. Not many, just a few. But it was enough. Enough to make the higher command ask, "What's happening to us?" They didn't know how to explain it. These were the same Axir warriors who had crushed planets, who had made whole species vanish, who once believed fear was stronger than anything. But now, the fear was changing sides. It started small. An Axir commander refused to destroy a human refugee ship. He said it was unarmed and no threat. A week later, he was arrested. But other soldiers remembered. Another group, stationed on a mining moon, started playing human recordings. Stories, songs, even laughter. They didn't know why they listened. But they felt something. It wasn't weakness. It was something else. Something they didn't have a word for. Meanwhile, on Earth, the War Council gathered for what could be their final mission. The Axir homeworld, Varkal Prime, was untouched so far, heavily guarded, surrounded by defenses no army could cross. But the humans were done playing by rules. They weren't going to attack the Axir homeworld with fleets. They were going to land one person. His name was Elias Rowe. He wasn't a general. He wasn't a soldier. He was a teacher, a historian, and he volunteered. He carried no weapon, only a small device containing the full human record, voices, images, history, pain, hope, Everything. The plan was simple. Deliver that to the Axir leaders directly. Everyone said it was suicide. But Elias just smiled, then let them see what sacrifice really looks like. He was dropped on Varkal Prime alone. The Axir captured him instantly, brought him to a dark room, tied him in chains. Commander Vorkal stood in front of him. "You are no soldier," Vorkal growled. "What are you?" Elias looked up. "I'm a memory," he said softly. And then he activated the device. In moments, the room filled with images, children laughing on Earth, mothers crying after battle, soldiers fighting, not for glory, but for each other, songs sung by broken voices, a planet rebuilding, again and again. It was not a message of war. It was a message of endurance. "You can kill," Elias said, "but we keep standing. That's what you never understood." Vorkal said nothing. He couldn't, because something in the Axir leader's eyes had changed. He saw it now, what made humans impossible to defeat. They didn't fight for power. They fought for each other, for meaning, for memory. A few hours later, Vorkal did something no Axir had ever done. He sent a message to Earth. It had only 3 words. "We surrender honorably." The war was over. Just like that. No final battle. No explosions. Just a quiet message and a truth too strong to break. The galaxy went silent. No one believed it at first. But when Axir ships pulled back, when prisoners were freed, when the killing stopped, the truth became clear. The impossible had happened. Humanity had stood against the deadliest empire in the galaxy and survived. Not by being the strongest, but by being the most human. Years later, monuments were built, on Earth, and even on Axir soil. They showed the face of Elias Rowe, the man who carried the story. Underneath, 4 simple words were carved. They remembered. We changed. The galaxy was not the same after that. New alliances formed. Old enemies became quiet friends. And in every school, every home, every ship, one story was told again and again. The story of the species they could kill, but never break. The story of humans. The end.